Dang it, I'm still logged in as Hancock County. I don't think I am.
All right, welcome everybody for our second night of the Hancock County Speaker Series. I'm Charles Gill, Vice Chair of the Hancock Democrat Party, and tonight I am honored to have William Kory Amyx with us to speak to everybody. He is a sixth district candidate, and in a field of four, which is a big field. Um, so we will have. I don't think that we'll have anybody else jumping on the speaker series for the rest of the time, but we will have our usual one at the end of towards the end of May. So be on the lookout for that. So that all being said, Kory, I will kick it over to you and let you introduce yourself, and I'll hide my picture up here so I don't scare people.
Oh, hi, everybody. My name is William Kory Amyx. I am running for Congress in Indiana's 6th District, and I have been working diligently across the 11 counties of this district, knocking on a lot of doors and getting to meet people. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
No problem. It's great to have you on tonight. So, with no further ado, we're going to just jump right into things. And if folks have questions in the chat, you can drop those in there, and I will try to include them in our conversation. And we'll kind of kick off from here. So, first thing, as I like to start off, because I thought this was kind of a big deal, especially for Hancock County, is the governor's idea of tolling, or I should say, the legislature and governor's idea of tolling I-70. Do you think that that is a worthwhile idea, especially right now with everything getting squeezed down on everybody like like is happening with all the crazy inflation prices and everything else? Do you really think that's a good idea?
No, not at all. I've talked to a lot of people across the district. I mean, living here in Hancock County, I use 70. Folks in Henry County, Fayette County, Wayne County. I was just talking to somebody in Greenfield the other day who drives 45 minutes one way on 70. And we can't afford groceries right now. We've got utility bills that are tripling, and they want to charge people for getting to work. The reality is people aren't going to be able to afford it. I mean, the state can pursue tolling with federal approval, but the real question, honestly, Chuck, is whether we should be putting that burden on working people right now. And I say we shouldn't. We've got enough breaking the backs of working class that I'm afraid this will be the nail in the coffin for folks. I mean, it's we're talking whether or not somebody is going to keep showing up to work or not because they can't afford to get there.
Yeah, very true. And it's and the thing that concerned me, especially here in Greenfield, is you start tolling I-70. Well, what's the natural next step? Folks are going to jump off on I-40 or on the US 40 and State Road 9 and make coming through Greenfield an absolute wreck. Um,
Right.
so, I mean, not that it's not already a wreck, but it's
True.
it'll get worse, unfortunately. And I know, especially from an infrastructure standpoint, it's going to be very difficult to keep pace with that. So, but I agree. I think it will be a choke point for a lot of folks, sadly.
It
So
will,
hopefully,
and I think if when I'm going to think positive when I'm elected to Congress, at the federal level, I'd be fighting to bring infrastructure dollars back to Indiana, so we're not balancing budgets on the backs of the working class, because for a lot of us, honestly, this really could, as I said, break it could be the nail in the coffin for many people on whether they show up to work or not.
very true, very true. Um, So, staying with our current state representation, the governor had touted some early wins on utility bill reductions, even though for-profit electrical and natural gas companies are elevating their rates pretty quickly. What is your position on controlling monopolistic control of electric and gas rates? And should that be the place of the federal government in this space, or is this just a purely state thing?
You know, at the federal level, I think that we need to be focused on accountability, making sure energy companies aren't abusing the power, investing in a stronger grid, and creating more competition where it's possible. Because nobody should have to choose between keeping the lights on and putting food on the table. I don't think that leaving it to the states is something that we're seeing the aftermath of that right now, quite frankly. I mean, our electric bills have tripled. I just saw a lady that was one of my former teachers in high school posted on Facebook today. She's up in Muncie. Her water bill tripled just since last month. And when you're on a fixed income, that matters. I was talking to a woman. She's not in this district. She's up in Muncie. Her husband passed a couple years ago, and she's worried about losing her house because she can't pay the electric bill anymore. That shouldn't be happening, period.
Oh, I agree. And one of the things that since I work in the utility space, I often try to make the differentiation between for-profit utilities and non-profit utilities like municipalities, where where we take in municipal utilities, every dollar we take in, we're reinvesting in our community, we're reinvesting in our system. Now, is it always an easy one-to-one? No, I wish it was, but but with growing communities, it takes a lot. But for profit, unfortunately, they're more beholden to their stakeholders. So it makes it really challenging to say that, hey, we're doing good for the public, but yet we're still got to make money for our shareholders. So it's kind of just an odd mix, I think. Okay, next question. So voter turnout. We know early voting is underway right now for the primary. Folks in Virginia are voting, but the Hoosier State has typically been usually kind of suppressed, I think, in the terms of voter turnout, mainly because I believe most folks don't really see the power in their individual vote anymore. As a congressional representative, how would you work to encourage civic engagement at all levels of government and promote a healthy democratic republic?
So I don't think Hoosiers don't care. I think a lot of them feel like it doesn't matter anymore. And I've seen that firsthand in this race. I've sat on living room couches, at dining room tables, and break rooms, bars, social clubs, what have you, all throughout this district. I think honestly now I can say I've sat and talked with hundreds, if not thousands, of folks, and I hear the same thing over and over and over and over again. All of them keep saying, nobody's ever asked me what I thought. That's a powerful message. I want everybody that's listening to this right now, whether you're live or you're playing this back, to think about that. Nobody's ever asked me what I thought. Why? Why aren't we asking voters as candidates, me as Kory Amyx and my opponents, why are they not out there asking that question? Why are people before me in the years past not asking that? I had a guy tell me that he had never voted in a primary in his life, not because he didn't care, but because he didn't think anyone was listening to him anyways, and that it didn't matter. That's the real issue. People disengage when they feel like decisions are already made, or that candidates show up for a photo, show up for a meeting, shake a few hands, and then they bolt out the door. I've watched that happen with candidates in this own race. I've knocked on over 23,000 doors in this district now. I'm closely approaching 24,000. And I'm not just hearing problems, but I'm building solutions with people. That's why my platform is very detailed as it is, because it came directly from Hoosiers. And as a member of Congress, I'm not changing that approach. That means I'm going to keep holding regular town halls in every corner of the district, not just the biggest cities. It means clear, transparent communication on what I'm voting for and why. And an office that people can actually reach, not interns showing up in the damn library because I'm too busy to show up. And I'm calling you out, Jefferson Shreve. Whether they feel heard or brushed off. but we also have to fix the system around it. That means expanding early voter access, making the process clearer and easier to navigate, and investing in civic education so people understand how their voice actually impacts decisions. Because here's the truth, and I don't know if anybody who's watched my campaign has figured this out yet, but you don't rebuild turnout by telling people to vote. You rebuild it by proving their voice actually matters. And that's why every piece of policy that I've written that is part of my campaign has come directly from you, the voters. Nothing in there aside from two of those bills that have to do with digital integrity and algorithmic integrity. They're all from the people. And that's how you earn their trust back. And when people feel heard, they show up. And that's how you rebuild a healthy democracy. Hoosiers don't lack the voice. They've just been ignored, and I'm here to change that.
Outstanding. Well, speaking of your proposals, we have one of the questions that have come in
Sure.
that from one of our folks. They read over your proposal for your $25 minimum wage. And while I've seen others also proposing this, if I could talk straight, what is your plan to help small and medium businesses with the added payroll expense?
Great. This is a fantastic question. I'm glad that you guys, whoever it was, asked that. So yes, I support raising the federal minimum wage to $25. There is one other candidate in this race, David Boyd, great guy, who is also named that number. Nobody else in the race. They want to raise minimum wage, but they won't name a number. I've purposely named this number because I've sat with workers who can't afford groceries, and I've sat with small business owners who are worried about making payroll. And if you ignore either side, your plan will fail, period. That's why I'm proud to have more than 30 small businesses that acted as an advisory board. People from both sides of the aisle, too. Every advisory board that I have, whether it's from small businesses to veterans to healthcare, I made sure that it is people from both sides of the board, because nothing gets done when you build something in an echo chamber. It fails. So here's exactly how mine will work. All right. We raise the wage to $25 over 4 years. It is not a light switch. You do not just flip it and go to 25. You will blow up the system if you do that. It's kind of like universal healthcare. You can't flip the switch and it happen overnight. So year one goes to $18. Year two goes to $21. Year three to $23. Year four to $25. That gives workers real relief and quickly. But it also gives businesses time to plan, adjust, and grow into it. Now, here's the part that nobody else is talking about, and it's how we protect those small businesses. Because too often I've heard, oh, small businesses are going to go bankrupt, and that's false. That won't happen if we follow this plan. It includes tax credits to offset the increased payroll costs. It provides temporary payroll tax relief during the phase-ins. It's support for training and apprenticeships, so businesses get more value from higher wages, and incentives for modernization, from equipment to systems, things that improve productivity. And the smaller the business, the more support they get. So this isn't just raise the wages and hope for the best, right? This is a structured transition. But here's the biggest piece that actually makes this sustainable: healthcare. And I know it's a question that most people will have. Right now, small businesses aren't just paying wages. They're paying thousands of dollars per employee in healthcare costs. That's one of the biggest reasons why wages stay so low. So as we raise wages, we also move towards universal healthcare. So businesses are no longer carrying that burden. That frees up thousands of dollars in money to go directly into paychecks instead of insurance premiums. It removes the pressure of choosing between paying your employees more or covering their healthcare. And it levels the playing field between small businesses and large corporations. Now, how do we do all of this? We stop letting giant corporations play by a different set of rules, just like we stop letting billionaires play by a different set of rules. We end tax breaks. We end tax breaks for all of those large companies that have offshore jobs, and we put limits on deductions for massive executive pay and tax large scale stock buybacks that don't create jobs or raise wages. So instead of small businesses and workers carrying the burden, we're asking corporations to actually contribute fairly. Because here's the bottom line, Chuck. If someone works full time in this country, they should be able to live with dignity. They should not be living off of a welfare wage, period.
Absolutely. I 100% hear that. And one of the you hit on universal healthcare, which I want to, in a roundabout way, come back to. But one big question in the healthcare space, and this hits me specifically because I'm a vet, that veteran care. And there's been a lot of talk about strengthening national defense and all this stuff. But what we haven't really seen a lot of is a larger issue for veterans, mainly for those of us that served 4, 6, or 8 years, mostly to gain skills to move into like get possibly college to help build a career and those kind of things. But unfortunately, a lot of military careers don't easily translate. I mean, I was a cook while in the military, which sounds like an easily transferable job, but believe me, I did everything other than cooking. So it's kind of like they don't have something out here that says jack of all trades. However, um, so how do how do we focus on helping veterans to make that transition, especially when most of us are dealing with PTSD issues? I mean, I know I struggle with it myself, that lead to decline in homelessness and those kind of things. How do we gather all of us up and make that transition from the military space into the civilian space in jobs and in healthcare? Hopefully I framed that well.
No, I think I get what you're saying. And first, thank you for your service, by the way. I tried to go to the Navy. I think you were Navy, right?
Yes, sir. 7 years.
Yep. I tried to go to the Navy. I made it all the way up to Great Lakes, and I was in Hell Week, and they took the gas mask off, and unfortunately, I'm allergic to a chemical in there, and it messed up one of my lungs. So they said, "We broke you. You're done." So my grandpa was in the Army. My uncle was actually in the Navy. He was on one of the first nuclear powered submarines. So veterans have actually been a part of my life since I was born, but also even in my career in higher education. So this falls perfectly. I've worked from admissions to financial aid and as a veteran affairs advisor. So veterans are very near and dear to me because they get overlooked. In fact, I'm the only person in this campaign that has any policy built for veterans. It's something I'm proud of. And to answer your question, or whoever asked that question, there's all kinds of things that are out there, but they're not working. Take, for example, SkillBridge. SkillBridge is a transition program that is generally put into place for the last 180 days before somebody transitions out into the civilian world. I want to see that moved up to 12 months prior. And right now, that transition from active duty to civilian life is too often it's disorganized, it's under-supported, and it's frustrating as hell. I've sat for 2 days, I sat at a VA hospital, and I'm going to not go off script, but kind of go on a tangent for a moment. I was very, very humbled to sit at a VA hospital for 2 days with veterans and hear their stories. And I wasn't there to be a politician. I wanted to learn from them. I can tell you, there were several times that I cried to hear those stories. Was amazing, heartbreaking, every emotion known to man. So it has instilled in me that I will not let veterans be forgotten. It's kind of frustrating for me to see the other candidates not have that, and that's not a pot shot at them. I hope they do. I hope, if I don't win the primary and one of them do, I hope they actually make some policy for veterans because they are too often forgotten and they need our help. So with that in mind, first, I will push for fully integrated transition system, not a handoff. That means that the Department of Defense, the Department of Veteran Affairs, and the Department of Labor need to be working together before a service member ever leaves active duty. No gaps, no confusion, just a clear step-by-step pathway into civilian life. Second, we need to translate military skills into civilian credentials automatically. I don't give a damn what position you are in. It transitions, and that is going to be a massive undertaking. It won't happen in 2 years. That is like a decade plan working with all of those different departments, but we have to. We are doing a disservice to our active duty members. Like you said, you were a cook, but you did so many other things. It should be a requirement for your job. And even moving up in ranks from E3 to E4 to E5, what have you, that you pass certifications, and these should be universal. You know, a good friend was in the Air Force, and being able to work on an airplane, you should be able to come out and go work at Boeing or somewhere else. You should have the certifications or the degree equal to that of the civilians who are doing that job. Period. No excuses. The third, mental health support has to be proactive, not reactive. That means guaranteed access to care, faster appointments, and expanding peer support networks so veterans aren't navigating that alone. We talk about PTSD. We need to actually treat it like the priority it is. Now, fourth, jobs and income stability. I support tax incentives for businesses that hire veterans, along with apprenticeship pipelines that connect veterans directly into high demand industries, especially skilled trades, manufacturing, and tech. Too often people think because I work in higher education that I'm expecting people to have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. And that is furthest from how I feel. I have a strong opinion on the trade industry, and I will support it entirely. And the same with unions, the same with skilled trades, manufacturing. Now, finally, housing and stability. This is one that I think that it pisses me off that we're not doing more. No veteran should be homeless, period. It should not be a thing. We need stronger coordination between federal and local communities to ensure veterans have access to safe, affordable housing immediately after transition. This is not about charity. It's about responsibility to the men and women who protect us every day. And that's why I want to say one last thing. For veterans, this is going to be unique, and it is going to turn heads. It's going to get a lot of blowback when I say this, and I've not said it yet to date. But I feel that after a set amount of time, we'll say 10 years, that veterans should no longer have to pay taxes to the United States of America. If they have served active duty and served 10 years or longer, they are exempt from taxes for the rest of their life. They have done a service to our country, and we should honor them for that. Whether that would ever get passed, I don't know. That's my personal opinion. I'm not saying that's any kind of legislation that I would try to pass right now. That is where I feel strongly about that. It is something I would talk to other congressional congressmen and women about to try to get passed. And the same with bringing back the home loans for veterans. They should not pay interest. None, not a dime. If they fall behind on it, we don't default on them. We help them.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having to regroup after that because that hit really close to home on that one.
Can you tell that I have a passion for veterans, and I mean it. It's not just bullshit. Excuse my language. I hope that we're not going to get censored for that. But I'm so tired of talking points for veterans by politicians. I'm the furthest thing you'll ever get from a politician, and I will never become one. I will be the person you see sitting in front of you today, and I will be that way for hopefully the 12 years that I serve, because I do believe in a term limit for Congress. I think we should have 6 terms and be done. The same with Senate. 2 terms, it's 12 years. Serve 12 years in the House, 12 years in the Senate, and you're done. You're out. Go to local and state politics, but get out. This shouldn't be a career.
I 100% agree. Wow. So you said a lot in there that I want to kind of pick some parts out of.
Go for it.
Especially in the apprenticeship, veterans in apprenticeships. This is one of those things that there are so many different areas. Like there was, I know in my industry, water, wastewater, there's a huge demand for qualified folks to be in the field because we're facing a more than 50% turnover here in just a few years. And then there's also the folks that deal with for it. The term just escaped me. Seems sewers, the ones that take do alterations on clothing and those kind of things. So
Seamstress. Yeah.
yes, thank you. So I think there is a real ability there because for veterans to fill those type of gaps, but we just have to invest in making those things happen and giving vets that, and you hit on this too, of the transitional availability of learning how to be a civilian because
Mhm.
it is and again, I can speak from personal experience, it is a whole different world. But anyway, we could talk about veteran stuff all day long, and I'd be happy to do that, but got to move on to some questions.
Absolutely.
But appreciate your answers on that one.
Mhm.
Wow, I got to reset because that was great. Well,
Well, you know what? We can let's schedule something sometime. We can do a podcast for veterans. I'd be honored to do that.
Absolutely. Okay, so speaking of veterans, and we're talking in that space, one of the biggest things nationally ongoing right now is the Iran war, or whatever the hell it is at this point. Supposedly, Congress was charged by the Constitution with the exclusive power to declare war. The current occupant of the White House seems to have started a war of choice, and nobody seems to be doing anything about it. So, what steps would you encourage others in the House of Representatives to do to end hostilities with a minimum loss of human life in the process?
So the Constitution is pretty damn clear that the Congress has the power to declare war. If a president like Pumpkin Spice Palpatine over there starts a war of choice without clear authorization, Congress cannot just shrug and move on. At minimum, the House should force a debate and vote on war powers, demand a clear legal justification, and push for narrowly defined off-ramp focused on ceasefire, diplomacy, and protection of civilians and service members. Ending hostilities with the least loss of life means restoring congressional oversight and refusing to let open-ended wars run on autopilot. I've met too many families here in Indiana who know what it means when Washington treats war like a talking point instead of a constitutional responsibility. Does that answer your question?
Oh,
I think there was a second part about Israel funding, right?
That comes up here in just a minute. So yeah,
okay,
you're tracking with me.
I was listening with Nick last night, so that's why I was paying attention.
Well, let's go ahead and hit that. So,
sure.
Obviously, right now we send a lot of funding over to Israel, and there's, and now I will fully acknowledge that under the current government, I think what's going on with what they're doing is absolutely wrong. What they're doing to Palestine is definitely a genocide and should be called that straight out with no qualms about it. However, we are still sending them money for defense and arguably offense, but to some degree. So should that be something the U.S. continues to support?
What's happening overseas, I agree. What's happening in Gaza is genocide. What's happening overseas right now is just wrong, period. The loss of civilian life on this scale is beyond unacceptable, no matter who is responsible. I believe Israel has a right to exist and to defend its people, but I do not support continuing to send U.S. tax dollars to any government, Israel included. If those funds are contributing to actions, and we know they are, it's not if, it's those funds are contributing to actions that violate human rights and international law, it needs to stop, and it should have stopped already. So, no, I don't support blank check funding. If the United States is going to provide aid, it has to be conditioned. And what we do for one, we have to maintain that same standard across the board. We can't show favorites for one country over another. We need to have strict compliance with international and humanitarian law, protection of civilians, transparency on how aid is even used. I feel like if there is any kind of set of rules or expectations for aid, they threw that shit out the window back in 2016 with Trump, with Pumpkin Spice Palpatine when he came into office, right? And there needs to be real consequences if those standards are violated. And believe me, I'm big on consequences for for violations. I believe that, this is kind of off topic, but I do think that we need to be having a Nuremberg trials 2.0 with everything that's happening. And they need to get the international courts involved. And people committing war crimes should be held accountable and send their asses to the same prison that they've been sending the illegals to, and keep them there.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. So this kind of ties in with another question that's popped up. I like, you put it, pumpkin spice Palpatine. That's one of my
Yeah,
favorite.
it's one of my favorites. Yeah.
As a sci-fi nerd, I will totally identify with that one. But the question here would be, so with the current occupant of the White House, which I refuse to say his name just because that just emboldens it too much. Would you vote to impeach him and also vote to investigate any of the numerous crimes that he is thusly, or him or his administration has thusly committed, or
I
are
feel
committing,
like
or still committing? Take a pick.
I feel like saying hell yeah is an understatement. Like, yes, I absolutely would vote to impeach him. But look, he's been impeached before, and look what happened. We got to go further than impeachment. We need to follow the process through, and that includes the Senate. There needs to be. We need to bring accountability back, and I think that this fall, when the blue wave strikes, it will be the downfall of Pumpkin Spice Palpatine's reign of terror. From both the House and the Senate, I do think an impeachment will go through, and I think that it's the buck doesn't stop with him. Everyone, Bondi. We need to look at Turning Point USA. We need to look at the Heritage Foundation. We need to look at all of those bad actors. Stephen Miller is another one that needs to be looked at. Pete Hegseth. Everyone involved. If you committed a crime, down to ICE agents who are killing people in our streets, all of them, hold every one of their asses accountable legally. I do not believe in street justice. I will never believe in street justice. I believe in the letter of the law, and I respect our law enforcement, and I respect our court systems. And it's about damn time that we bring some respect back to it, because the way they're acting is not respectable. And that means we got to get some folks out.
I 100% agree with you on that. So on that same kind of note, current occupant of the White House has signed an executive order to try and attempt to nationalize the election process. Where he gets this idea, I have no idea. If the judicial branch doesn't act to bar this overreach of executive authority, what steps should be taken in Congress to protect the states' rights to conduct their own elections?
States run elections, and Congress sets the federal rules through the law, right? An executive order cannot just nationalize election administration by itself. God knows he's trying. If the courts do not stop an overreach, then Congress needs to act directly, clarify statutory limits, protect state authority where the Constitution gives it, and really block any attempt to rewrite election law through executive fiat. Election integrity matters, but so does the constitutional process, and we got to follow it.
So actually, another question popped in right after I asked that last one. So I want to circle back to the impeaching of Palpatine. How would you help to convince the Senate, assuming that there's not the necessary amount of Dems to vote to convict members of his administration?
It's a good question, and we could run through hypotheticals. And I quite honestly don't want to bullshit people. I think we have to sit down with our senators, with our U.S. senators, and have the discussion about why they continue to support a warmonger, a felon, a liar. Why are they disgracing? And quite honestly, look at what happens this fall and use it as an example. I believe we're about to see the biggest change in a political positions in the history of the United States. The people are pissed off, and we are going to show up at the polls and change it. And if they enjoy their comfy job as a senator, then they better start listening to the people. We proved that here in Indiana when it came to the redistricting. The people rose up and spoke up. And I can try to convince a senator all day long. You know, I've got some good sales skills that I could probably talk them into it, right? But I think the people rising up and bringing power to their voices like they did this year is more powerful than I could ever be.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers that question.
Oh no, I think it did really well. And in fact, when I think about this, I always think of the movie V in some respects without the explosions and some of
Love it.
that. But
Yep.
you know, there's one line that just resonates so explicitly in my head of people should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people. And
Amen.
we the people have to bring that, you know, take back control of government and say, look, we're tired of this crud. Anyway, sorry, I'll
You're
swing
okay.
back.
No, actually, if my background wasn't so blurred, you'd see my superhero collection and my V for Vendetta, my Guy Fawkes original Guy Fawkes mask is on a shelf back there.
Nice.
I will not say what that was used for, or
Copy
everybody
that.
else can figure it out from there.
So another question that popped in here, which I haven't really, this was one that didn't pop up before, but I wanted to kind of throw this out there. Um, Individual rights and bodily autonomy is a huge issue. I know it is something that I hold very near and dear, especially for my wife and daughter. So how will you work to give women the control of their bodies back and to basically provide equal standing as they are due?
So I have been a firm believer. Look, I'm a gay man. I've gone through uh, enough discrimination. I can't relate to what Black people may go through with racism or what women go through with sexism. But I can say that I'm a man and I don't have a uterus. And what happens with a woman's body is a woman's choice. And I will fight for that to the day I die. Period.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, if we had a banner we could make on that and just all day long, we should be fighting for that. Because I'm a firm
Yep.
believer that humans should be equal, period. End of story. I
Yeah.
mean, it shouldn't make any difference one way or the other.
I feel that way for trans rights. I feel that way for women's rights, for gay rights. And too often times, Chuck, I see religion used to attack these things. And I'll say this: I believe in freedom of religion, but I also believe if we're going to have freedom of religion, we need to have the freedom from religion just the same. I think it was Thomas Jefferson that said that, or I can't remember. It was one of our forefathers made that statement, and I butchered it, I'm sure.
You hit it right on the
But
nose.
I think that fighting for women's rights, fighting for gay rights, trans rights, fighting for human rights is something that I will never stop doing. I grew up in an era where I was in the closet. I led a straight life, and I was not the person that I was born to be. And I think fighting for who we are individually is something that I will always do. I never want someone to not be themselves and not be able to make choices for themselves.
Absolutely. Wow. So now we've covered a great range of voting rights and human rights. Loving it. But now I want to kind of move forward into kind of something that took a kind of a good section the last time we talked about it was renewable energies and how we can kind of focus better on an environmental scale. So the current occupant of the White House has said he doesn't want to continue any investments in renewable energies. He is solely focused on coal and fossil fuel energies and those things, which is flying in the face of our European allies, neighbors, who have made considerable strides in these technologies and are doing well. In fact, if I remember right, there was a city in I think it was Norway, that is running completely on renewable energy at this point. So it can't
Yeah, I
happen.
think you're right.
So the question is how do we reinvest in those technologies to eliminate the ecological impact on the environment? And what course should we take as a country to invest in that?
So, first off, pretending renewable energies do not work is ideology. It's definitely not policy. The real question is how we build a reliable, affordable, and American energy mix for the future, right? That means investing in renewables, storage, grid modernization, domestic manufacturing, and next generation technologies alongside reliability planning. We should be leading that future, not surrendering it. The Trump administration has rolled back major climate rules, including the endangerment finding and vehicle emissions standards, while Europe's wind and solar generation surpassed fossil fuel generation in 2025. Um, I think that we have got to stop supporting these archaic energy means of energy. We've got to invest in our future and our children's futures. This planet, we only get one. And I can tell you, I am a giant astronomy, giant space nerd. I love everything to do with space. In fact, when I go to bed at night, I watch astronomy documentaries to fall asleep to. And one of my favorite topics to watch is the search for the second Earth, right? And they've not found it. We don't have anywhere else to go. So we can't destroy this giant floating rock in space or we're all dead. So we have got to do better. We have to. And billionaires be damned. It's time the people rose up and made sure their voice are heard. And we're finally doing that across the board in a lot of different areas. I think this is one that we need to see again, that we need to see
Absolutely.
the people rising up. And we can't be afraid of those things. For a while, I was afraid of nuclear power. Now, as I mentioned earlier, my uncle Jeff, my mom's brother, he was one of the big execs at the Davis-Besse power plant up in Ohio. After he left the Navy, working on the nuclear sub, it began with an H. I can't remember the name of the sub. I think it was the Haddock, something like that. He went to the nuclear power industry and he worked in that. And I got to spend time after my grandpa died in January with Uncle Jeff. And I asked him, I was like, tell me about nuclear power. Do I need to be afraid of it? And do we need to be afraid of it? And he said, no, it's a clean energy. Sure, there are always dangers, as there is with anything. You have Chernobyl, you had what happened in Japan a few years ago. Those things can happen, but there are more people killed from, electrical overloads than there are nuclear power incidents. So I think that's something that we need to look at. We need to look at solar. Solar is another big industry that I would love. Also for higher education to get into. We need degrees that will focus in on these degrees and trades, I should say, not just bachelor's degree, but also you've got your trade skills and your associate's degree programs, and we need feeder programs that start in vocational school for solar power, for wind power, so we get people engaged in these early. It also helps save money on college. Trust me, after it'll be 22 years this next month that I've worked in higher ed. It's getting expensive and kids can't afford it. We have to do better.
Oh,
So I hope that
absolutely.
answers your question.
No, that was I couldn't have said it better. And I think that one of the things, the technologies that I would love to see catch on a little bit more is like hydrogen cell technology,
Mhm.
because there's been this since I work in the water world. There's been one of these thoughts that water will be the new oil of the future. Water availability. So we need to
Mhm.
start treating it like the precious resource that it is, and not just this thing that just magically pops into a faucet or goes down a drain. So, but that goes into science education. I think public education is a real key to that type of understanding. And
I
actually,
agree.
in talking about education, we just had a question come in. Can you please speak to your position on and public charter schools, so public schools and public charter schools in our district, and how would you help them? And how about childcare?
So when it comes to public and charter schools, I know kids leaving public schools and go to a charter school, it's a drain because the money follows them to the charter schools. Um, Education by far and large, especially K through 12, it's left up to the state level. There's not much, I think, from Congress that I would be able to do in regards to that specifically. I can go from the broader spectrum of working with state legislators, talking to them and helping them, encouraging them to focus on public schools. I'm sorry, I went to a Catholic school from first, second, and third grade, and then I went to public school from fourth grade on, fourth through 12th grade. I am a product of public education. I believe in public education. I think our teachers, I mean, if we can pay ICE $40,000 sign-on bonuses, $90,000 a year salaries, and $50,000 a year end-of-year bonuses, then we sure as shit can pay our teachers at least $100,000 a year salary. So I think our public education has got to get the funding that it needs, and if I can do anything from a federal level to help that, I will. I think that the first step is getting the Department of Education staffed with people who know what the hell they're doing, and not an actress from the WWE or WWF, whatever the hell that wrestling series is. You know, this isn't freaking SmackDown. This is the Department of Education. You know, the only SmackDown that quite honestly needs to happen is a smack upside the head of these people who are making decisions about education that don't know a damn thing about education, and they are destroying it. That would be my first focus for education. And again, I hate to swear so much, but I feel strongly for education. What has happened, I'm living it on the higher education side at the college level, and I see there's a special education teacher, and I have so many friends that are teachers in K through 12. I see what's happening. I hear their stories. I am not the smartest man in the room when it comes to K through 12 education. I'm not the smartest man in the room when it comes to higher education. And that's why I have those advisory boards of people that can give me those answers. So I don't want to bullshit people. If I don't know something, I'll tell you I don't know. I don't know the answer that you might be seeking. And I don't want to try to make something up that would suffice that. What I can say is I will work my ass off with people in the industry, listening to them. And I will make sure it is from both sides of the table. I don't believe in working in an echo chamber just as much as I don't believe working with a cult. We need fair-minded people on all sides of the aisle, left, right, and center. We need to come back together again and work together to find solutions. The left is never going to get their way, just as much as we see what the right's doing right now with getting their way, and it's destroying things. We cannot continue down this path. We have got to have bipartisanship. And I think that my former grandfather-in-law Doc Bowen, is smiling down on me on that. He was known for bipartisanship. And as much as he teased me about going into politics, and I said that that's where you go to lose your soul, I know that Doc is proud of me now for what I'm doing, and I would not let him or the people down for that. And you hear my cats fighting in the background now.
Well, that's okay. Hey, you know, it's just like having little ones around. Yeah, it was kind of, you hit a very interesting point there of staffing a governmental agency with actual subject matter experts. I mean, wow, that's a concept and a
Grand
half.
idea, right?
Yeah, I know, right? One question, and this kind of goes back to uh, politicians being beholden to money interests and those kind of things, but specifically talking more about how they enrich themselves. Um, what's your position on stock trading by representatives and senators from both all parties? Where do you
Sure.
stand?
So I'm side tangent. I am really fortunate to be the only candidate in the 6th district that is part of Take Back Congress. It's BAC. Take Back Congress is about term limits. It's about banning stock trading. And in fact, this week was the Indiana takeover. Kelly Thompson up from the 3rd district and Jackson Franklin from the 5th. I think today's Mary Allen's day. Yesterday was my day. And my topic was stock trading. I actually put out a video on it yesterday. Jefferson Shreve, I thought it was kind of appropriate. And they did not do this on purpose. They had no idea. As much as the right complain about Nancy Pelosi, she's traded the 8th most stocks in Congress. Good old boy Jefferson Shreve has traded the 5th most. So if they want to bitch about Pelosi's trading stocks, they need to point that finger right on back at themselves for electing somebody who's traded far more than she has. But this shouldn't be about pointing fingers. We should be pointing fingers at all of them. The simple fact is they have insider information that they're privileged to have, that they're literally they're making stock trades on. The Stock Act said they can't do that, and nobody's holding them accountable. We got to go back in and obviously we need to make the laws stronger, rewrite them, write new ones. It needs to be banned. Period. I think a mutual fund is fine. I think we can all agree a mutual fund is fine, but nobody should be trading any stocks on anything. And it's hilarious. It's not hilarious. It's enraging. It's infuriating to watch right before war how many of those individuals run and go buy stock in some of those. What's the nice politically correct way to put these companies? I won't name names. And some of the warmongering companies that they'll profit off of war. We'll just leave it at that. It's interesting to watch the stock trades in that beforehand. This war right now is all about money. That's all it's ever been about on multiple different fronts. So I will not. I've pledged that I will not trade stocks. I will hold a mutual fund at most. That's it.
Fair enough. So, and I want to circle back to a question that was brought up yesterday, and I think it'd be fair to bring up in this context too. So, with the president's focus on trying to do, the taking over of elections, the current Middle East cluster, calling it a war actually makes it sound more organized than it is. Do you think all this is him trying to refocus the nation away from the Epstein catastrophe and holding them, people being actually held to account and getting that information totally out there and holding everyone that's in them accountable?
So I'm going to give everybody a good laugh right now. I think we all know I'm loaded with ADD. So you shake something shiny, it's my squirrel moment, right? I think anything and everything happening, Trump is loaded with it. And this is coming from a guy who has ADHD. Trump does everything he can to try to distract people. And I think it is entirely about distracting people. Well, I take that back. I'll go 50-50. 50% of it is to distract people from the Epstein files. The other 50% is to line the pockets of these politicians. They're making money hand over fist on this. And all you got to do is watch their stock trades.
Absolutely.
And I think that those two things go hand in hand because quite honestly, we know it was a bunch of rich people diddling little children. So we need to focus on that.
Absolutely. So in the few minutes we have left, I do want to hit on one big topic because I always like to try and talk about things that are very prevalent here in Hancock County and in the 6th District itself, but talking about data centers. So data centers have been a real big focus. We've won some great, we've headed off a few here locally. Unfortunately, some other places have not really had that success. So just in a quick synopsis, maybe a minute or two, what's your feeling or position on data centers, and what do you see the course for the future of Indiana in that space?
So first, I don't support data centers being built without standards, period. What people are reacting to right now isn't the technology. It's the fact that massive projects are being dropped into communities with little protection, little transparency, and honestly, in some cases, taxpayer subsidies, and it's got to stop. When I'm in Congress, I'm going to either introduce it, or if it's already being introduced, back it. Federal framework to govern how data centers are built in this country. So let me give you a quick rundown of what that might look like. So first, EPA-backed environmental standards written into law. So data centers would be required to meet strict federal benchmarks on water usage and recycling, energy efficiency, emissions, and waste heat management. If you can't meet those standards, you're not going to build. It's that simple, period. Second, the grid responsibility. These facilities consume massive amounts of power. And under this plan, companies would be required to bring new energy capacity with them, whether that's renewable generation, storage, or direct investment into grid upgrades. They do not get to plug into an existing grid and drive up costs for Hoosiers. Third, we've got to talk about water protection. Cooling systems have to be modern, efficient, and sustainable. No project should move forward if it risks local water supplies or agriculture. That includes mandatory reporting and federal oversight. Now, fourth, this is a big one that I have heard from everyone across all 11 counties. We got to talk about the tax abatements. Let me be clear on this one. Citizens should not be subsidizing billion-dollar corporations to come into their communities, period. If a company can afford to build a data center, it can damn sure afford to pay for its fair share. No more backroom deals where communities carry the burden and corporations take the profits. Now, fifth, the community impact requirement. And this is a big one that I got from a lot of different people in the district. Before any major project is approved, they need to be a full impact study, a public input, and enforceable agreements on local benefits, jobs, infrastructure, and long-term investment, not just temporary construction and long-term strain. Sixth is the federal baseline standards. Right now, states are being forced into a race to the bottom, competing to give away most to attract these projects, right? That ends with federal guardrails. So every community is protected, whether it's in Indiana or anywhere else. Because the bottom line here, Chuck, data centers are part of our future. We're using phones. You use a data center when you use Canva, when you use Facebook. Those are going to be around, right? That doesn't mean that communities should be sacrificed for them. We can have growth and protect our people at the same time. Right now, we're not doing that, and we need a plan that makes sure we do. Progress doesn't mean letting corporations write the rules. It means making sure those rules protect the people who live here.
Absolutely. And I'm definitely, again, we could talk about the environmental impacts on different things I think should definitely be done with EPAs. Again, especially as a water specialist, there's a lot that could be done there. Again, we could do a whole other podcast just on that alone. So to wrap out here, we got a couple minutes left. I just want to kind of touch on, since we're both in sci-fi nerds and space minded, we just had the Artemis 2 mission, which was awesome. We made our first our return trip around the moon. What is your greatest, what's your excitement in that program for us as a human species?
So I've always been fascinated by space. I was talking about that a little bit earlier. A good friend of our family's works in mission control at NASA. I've actually got to sit in the real mission control. If you go down there, you get to go in the old mission control on a tour. Riley was a little kid the last time I was there, and I got to go into the new mission control then. I'm 100% supportive of NASA and the Artemis program. Artemis 2 is a big deal. It's the first time in decades that we're sending astronauts around the moon again, and it represents something bigger than just a mission. It's American leadership in science, innovation, and exploration. Did you know that there's a feeder program to NASA at Purdue?
No, I didn't.
Yes, they have an internship program where you're at Purdue part of the time and NASA part of the time. That's actually what our friend that works in mission control did. Programs like Artemis drive real benefits. Advanced manufacturing. You've got engineering and tech jobs. You've got research that feeds into everyday innovation and inspiration for the next generation. That matters here at home. States like Indiana are part of that supply chain: components, materials, skilled labor. That isn't just happening somewhere else. It's creating opportunity here. So I support NASA-led exploration. I think public investment, public accountability, and mission focused on science and national interest is important. I'm not so much supportive of the private industry. I think Elon Musk can kick rocks, and I think that those he can kick moon rocks. How's that? That's
Nice.
putting it a nice way. I know that SpaceX has done a lot of things to help NASA, but when you're doing it for profit and you're getting all of these government contracts, that needs to stop. We need to fund NASA again and have pride in NASA like we used to. We're not going to rely on the private industry.
Absolutely. So final question, and this is the big one. I've been leading up to it all night. If you had to choose one sci-fi character that describes you in a nutshell, okay, what would it be?
I heard you ask Nick that last night, so I've been thinking about this. I'd go with Captain America, and not because of the powers, because of what he honestly stands for. He doesn't fight for a party or a politician. He fights for the people and for the values that the country is supposed to live up to. And when those values are off track, he doesn't just go at it alone, right? He stands up and says something. That's leadership to me. I got to say, I'm going to take you guys over here. I wish I could figure out how to get my background not so blurred. So I hope this works. But I'm not BSing anybody. You might be able to see what's on my wall right here.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's
Yeah, kind of blurry, like I make out the Captain America there.
There's Captain America. So
Yep.
he's actually, it's
Very cool.
something big up on my wall. And so yeah, that's who I would choose. I'd like to say Batman because he's cool and he's, he's like, I heard Nick's answer because he's a billionaire, right? But no, my answer would be Captain America.
Very cool. Well, Kory, thank you so much for your time tonight. I think this was a great conversation. We wish you all the best in your campaign and look forward to talking with you many times here in the future. Everybody, keep in mind, early voting is open. Make your voice heard.
Please.
Voting centers are going to be opening up this weekend for early voting. So get out there, be heard, and let's have a good time. All right, everybody, thank you so very much for being here with us tonight, and we'll catch you on the next time. Have a good one.
Thank you, everybody.